That later on. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to get inside of the big story. So the U.S. State Department has temporarily halted scheduling new visa interviews for foreign students who are seeking to study in the United States of America. This pause is intended to allow for the implementation of expanded social media vetting for these applicants. Existing interview appointments remain unaffected. Now, this is a major development, and so we're joined this morning by educator and social commentator Dr. Karren Dunkley, who is my guest in the Big Story segment right now. Good morning and welcome, Dr. Dunkley. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Greetings to you and your listeners, and as always, thank you for having me.
All right. So we are just making sure that all my listeners can hear Dr. Dunkley. All right. Are you there, Doc?
Yes, I am here.
Wonderful. We're hearing you now. We are hearing you now.
Great.
All right. So Doc, this is another serious development, if you ask me, coming out of the United States of America. What are, from your perspective, the potential implications of this policy change on the U.S.'s attractiveness to international students, first of all?
I think so. Definitely, we know that those individuals who are international students, prospective, will definitely be impacted because the United States, in terms of tertiary education, has always been quite an attractive field all across the globe for many different reasons, whether it's in the areas, there are some unique areas of study that the United States, in terms of technology and just basic knowledge skills, tends to be more advanced. And so people from all over the world's prospective students would want to attend. Now, what I do want to share with your listeners and yourself, Rich, is that I was an international student initially.
Yes.
As well. And so I think for me, I paid close attention. Now, here's what we do know. I think that certainly it's going to have what I'm going to call a chill effect. We have heard that students have started to self-select out of applying to U.S. institutions only because of the scrutiny and the delays, because you don't know how long the policy is going to take to fully implement. To vet social media is quite interesting, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're looking at the various online activities, and this expanded screening is going to take time. It may also result in some revocation of university certifications, as we have seen with this ongoing lawsuit between the administration's recent efforts to revoke Harvard University's ability to enroll international students. Mm-hmm. So even the programs that you may want to apply to that were primarily to attract these international students, these programs now, their future is uncertain as this legal back and forth continues throughout the court system. So I think that the implications is definitely, it will disrupt academic plans. Mm-hmm. There, of course, is uncertainty and stress, and it's just a chill effect. They're going to, and then enrollment will absolutely drop, which, by the way, remember that international students typically pay a higher tuition, and that really was lucrative for many universities and colleges.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that will mean a drop in revenue as well for the universities.
It's 40 plus billion annually.
Yeah.
Right? So look at the economic implications. It's 40 plus billion annually to the U.S. economy, because it's not just tuition, housing, travel, and spending.
Yes.
And again, your international student, typically they're not entitled to the grants and the subsidized financial aid that U.S. national receive, that they receive. And so therefore it will absolutely have an adverse impact on the economy, and not just the national economy in terms of the 40 plus billion, but also the local economic disruption. Because remember, within communities, for example, in Philadelphia, where I live, Philadelphia is what you call a college town. We have Drexel University, we have Temple University, we have the University of Penn, we have the Community College of Philadelphia, all within walking distance, Richie. And so locally, the businesses, your restaurants, your housing, all your different services absolutely will be impacted.
As it relates to the social media activities that they'll be scrutinizing, what specifically do you believe they might be looking for or vetting for, so to speak, in the process?
I think they have been clear. I think that the social media activity is to make sure that as an international student, in terms of your content that you post, you're going to be viewed, are you a potential security risk, i.e. as defined by this administration. And so the specific criteria is not public, but we can infer they're looking for any what they call affiliation with extremist groups that in their estimation would protect or support terrorism, any hate group, any membership in what they call radical forums or pages. They have spoken a lot about, for example, any view that they might perceive that is anti this administration, anti-U.S. sentiment, or anti-government rhetoric. And so any posts that openly express hostility towards U.S. government, the military, or citizens, they're looking for that. Any content that appears to advocate or criticize the government institutions, they're looking at that. So I think they've said that. They've spoken about the expression of violence or criminal intent. So any post, I would imagine, that suggests any intent to harm or engage in illegal activity, or any shared weapon imagery. I had a friend who was banned from social media because when they had the killing of a CEO who was in the health industry, they made a post and they deemed it that it was glorifying violence. So I think that's what the social media activities are likely to be scrutinized if they deem it to be affiliated with any of these areas. And also contradictions in biographical information. They're looking to see if education really is what it says, if there are discrepancies, if there are fake identities, or if these persons are really high risk.
So obviously, as they have stated, the national security concerns, is one of the reasons really that's driving this decision, they would say. But to the student who is thinking of applying or already has applied, is it too late now for them to sort of tidy up their social media postings?
I think that students will have to. So you ask an excellent question, Richie. We know, and I've seen people do this, when they're interviewed for high-level jobs, I've seen people go in and do what we call a scrubbing of their social media. They scrub it. And they go back and they delete and they disassociate from groups. And so we know that there is a pause, there is a small window. So it's paused the new student interviews, but it says, hey, we're going to continue with the interviews that are in progress. So I think that students should audit their public profiles if they are truly committed to attending university in the United States. We know it's controversial because of First Amendment, because basically what they're saying is, and it is very subjective judgment. There are no guidelines, but simply that if you post what they consider to be anti-government, anything that is political activism that does not align with their worldview, then that is a concern. But I think absolutely, if young persons, or not even young, just students in general, want to benefit from what they deem as a U.S. application and tertiary education, then they have to audit their public profiles, even content that is joking, explicit or offensive material, any posts about drugs, hate speech, or illegal activity. They have to go through all. They have to look at their privacy settings. They have to make sure that any post that is private should only be visible to their friends, and probably not even that. And they should restrict who can tag them or post to their timeline. I have an open Facebook. Anyone can tag me. But maybe if you're a student, you don't want people to tag you because people can tag you into some posts that might not be sensitive.
Or might be.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
And there are a lot of digital tools, Richie. I know, for example, you could look at the footprint scanners and apply these so that you yourself could see what comes up when you track yourself online in terms of your visibility. And something I never did. And people said, Karren, you don't Google yourself. And I never Googled myself, but I think you should. You should Google your name, Google your handles to see what is visible to the public.
Are there any measures that can be taken to ensure sort of the accuracy and even fairness of the social media vetting process that we're hearing about?
It is so subjective, right? And when you say the accuracy, anyone who knows social media know that people can create cybersecurity is an issue. Let's just say that people could create an entirely different profile that has nothing to do with you if you've ever been hacked, right? And so this is an issue. How do we ensure that what you have online, what people see when you apply is really you and you're not going to be sabotaged? So I think that the government will have to ensure, quite frankly, that they conduct training that reviews digital content, that not much is left to subjective judgment, because it just is a subjective process. And that's why I hesitate to answer that, because I'm not even sure how you do that. I think that they will have to do national security vetting through cross interagency coordination. So, for example, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and the FBI, they may have to work together just to make sure that what they're seeing is correct. The visa security unit, again, is an area. And by the way, Richie, this is currently in place. You have consular training, you have interagency coordination, and you have a visa security unit that really, at high volume embassies, for example, in Jamaica, they should flag applicants for further review. So this is in place. It just needs now to be implemented with more fidelity, more urgency, more nuance, because the stakes are so high. But let's note, there is no appeals process. We haven't seen it. Immediately when I heard the news, I said, is there an appeals process, for example, to address what you're describing if there's incorrect information? Is there a vetting criteria that they will share with prospective students? Because remember, my tone and humor or political commentary might be different. I might be using satire. Culture, again, is so relative. There's no use of linguistics or cultural experts to translate, for example, what might be acceptable, quite frankly, in one country versus another. And then you have algorithmic bias that really happens. So I notice if I go on and if I'm reading the Jamaican news, I begin to see all the blogs that come up that are Jamaican, or I begin to see the Jamaican TikTok. If I go on and I'm looking at a health product, my algorithmic bias begins to send me all of these. I would say if I go on Sabbath and I'm watching like an online Seventh-day Adventist program, it begins to send me. So the algorithmic bias is always there. And how do you mitigate for these problematic areas?
One of the obvious end result of this policy is that it seemingly will affect the diversity of student bodies at U.S. universities. But Dr. Dunkley, it seems the administration is not too concerned about that.
No, I think that, in fact, it's intentional. They're creating the system. They're creating this process exactly how they would like it to function. They do want for it to impact the diversity, right? So when, for example, I think there are three places or three areas. It will have a disproportionate impact on students from certain countries, because we know that students who come from regions with political content or social norms that is not aligned with the American worldview, it will be problematic, and it's going to be from students from majority Muslim countries. I think students from certain parts of Africa, Latin America, and China will be subjected to heightened scrutiny based on the past immigration trends and security flags in the United States. So I think, quite frankly, that students from historically underrepresented or geopolitically sensitive regions may either be denied or just be discouraged from applying. So this disproportionate impact, Richie, is real. We spoke about the chill effect. People just say, I'm going to sit this out. Let me look somewhere else if I'm from a marginalized communities. And then the third would be, of course, the impact on the U.S. institution itself that rely on this diverse enrollment. I am concerned about, we should be concerned about the historically black colleges and universities. We should be concerned about public colleges. We should be concerned about urban universities because, again, I told you I'm in what you call a college town.
Yeah.
This is where primarily international students have historically enrolled at higher numbers than across the country. And so they will absolutely suffer enrollment declines.
Dr. Dunkley, I want to thank you so very much for dissecting this issue and making it so easy for us to understand. I thank you and I wish you a great day. Look forward to our next conversation. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Walk good.
One.